There's a couple brand new Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with Sonic Origins getting some very unfortunate news for fans of the soundtrack of this game. And the big talking point for today's video has to do with Nintendo Switch Online and a very interesting update that went live late last night. And we have to discuss what was added and also discuss when is the future roadmap for NES, SNES, and maybe even new consoles coming to Nintendo Switch Online base tier going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Summer Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different stories to unpack today, and we have to kick it off with Sonic Origins, as I am very hyped for this game to release. Playing the classic Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Sonic & Knuckles, and Sonic CD, and modern widescreen visuals, and many new different gameplay modes, as well as being able to play through the entire story as different characters and experience brand new cutscenes that were created from the ground up, have me very pumped for this game's release. However, if you have been around on the channel for a while, you will know I've had some gripes with it, as I do think that Sega definitely overcomplicated the pricing structure for this game with pre-order bonuses for a DLC pack that you get if you pre-order the game, and then if you don't, then you don't get that. And there's like 3 to 4 different pricing tiers that you'll have to ultimately end up figuring out which version you want to get all of the content. And it's like, this should be just a simple $30 or $40 price point. But regardless of all of that, there has been a lot of question with how Sega would handle the soundtrack for this title, specifically around Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, as if you guys aren't familiar, it is heavily rumored that Michael Jackson was actually involved in creating those soundtracks, and with that, there's some licensing rights that Sega hasn't been able to maintain with those games, which is why it's more rare to see Sonic 3 and or Sonic & Knuckles re-released, whereas we get Sonic 1 and 2 all day, every day, anywhere, and you can even buy those games standalone right now on the Nintendo Switch. However, this is a big deal for Sonic Origins, getting all of these titles thrown together in a single collection pack, and it does sound like there's going to be some workaround when it does come to the soundtrack portion of that game. And to get on the same page with exactly what's been said here and what's being claimed, let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed article together. Sonic 3 and Knuckles won't have its original soundtrack in Sonic Origins. Composer Jun Senu is working hard to adapt the original music. Speaking during an official Sonic livestream, Sonic social media manager Katie Karnowski noted that the game won't have the exact soundtrack that featured in the 1994 release. I know one question that we've seen kind of over and over is what is the situation on the music in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Karnowski said. While unfortunately we can't use all of the original sounds from the Sega Genesis version of the game, Jun Senu has been working really hard to adapt the original music that was composed in 1993 for Sonic Origins. He's been going so far as reproducing it with the same sound chip from the Sega Genesis and using his own digital audio tape collection to make this as faithful to the original as possible. Sonic 3's soundtrack is infamous because it's widely believed that some of the tracks were composed by Michael Jackson, who wasn't credited in the final game. Jackson's musical director Brad Buxer has claimed that Jackson worked on the soundtrack for 4 weeks in 1993, but Sega has never officially confirmed it, and notable Sega executives, including former Sega of America president Tom Kolansky, have said that if he was involved, it was without their knowledge. A 1997 PC port of the game contained new music tracks that had seemingly been created to replace the music that was allegedly Jackson's. So we really won't know exactly what to expect with this story until we do get our hands on the game and can actually hear firsthand what kind of tracks have been recreated, how close are they to the originals, will it still play into that same nostalgia that you remember from when you were playing the games the first time around. It's definitely an unfortunate situation with the licensing rights around this game. Whether or not Sega can just get those back if they pay the money, I am not personally sure of, but I hope that this is not a cost-cutting measure and rather something that they actually have to do because they can't get those rights anymore for whatever reason. But the soundtrack of Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles is absolutely top tier, and something that I definitely am disappointed won't be in its original form at the end of this game's release. And this game really just has me feeling very conflicted because I'm super hyped to replay these classic 2D Sonic games, and at the same time there's no physical version, there's convoluted pricing on the digital version, and then we're continuing to get news like this that was kind of expected, that yes, we may not be looking at the original soundtracks for some of the games. That said, at the end of the day, I am ready to replay all of these classic Sonic games, and I will be picking it up at release, and I'll definitely be making a video for it here on the channel, and it will be cool to see how they've implemented these new gameplay modes and also spread the cutscenes throughout the main story points of the game. So I want to hear from you guys, all your thoughts and feelings on Sonic Origins, how Sega's going about the release of this game, how they're handling everything up to the launch of it, and are you like me and you're a little bit conflicted as well with this game's release being digital only, now getting the news that we can't expect the full original soundtrack from Sonic 3 and Sonic Knuckles? miracles, or is this something that is a non-issue for you? And definitely share with me whether or not you're planning on getting this game when it releases later this month on June 23rd. So please share all your thoughts and feelings on all things Sonic Origins in the comments down below. Now, the next story we're talking about today has to do with Nintendo Switch Online, specifically the base tier service, and an interesting update that just appeared. As you do know that if you look at history, Nintendo at one point in time really all but forgot about the NES and SNES library of classic games, as we went over a full 6 months at one point without a single new game added into those classic libraries. And you can argue that even though now we are seeing Nintendo come back into somewhat more of a rhythm with those NES and SNES library of games, that they are definitely putting out subpar releases, as the last batch of new games I don't think impressed anybody out there. But let's hope that some of the classic gems that people still want to see added into those libraries will be added slowly over time. However, yesterday, and the reason it is in the news, is late last night, to many people's surprise, because we didn't even see that normal heads up that we would normally get with maintenance being scheduled for the SNES app, but they did have 3 new Kirby games go live. However, these are the special editions, kind of like the extra modified versions of these games, if you will, where you have certain things that would only be unlockable from actually going through and 100%ing these games that are actually available right at the start of it. And they're kind of doing it as part of Kirby's 30th anniversary. And by the way, Kirby's getting a lot more love than we saw the Legend of Zelda series get for their 35th, but I will let that one slide. And you can see the following posted up by Nintendo on their Twitter account that says 3 Super NES titles are live for Nintendo Switch Online members: Kirby Superstar Meta Knight's Revenge, Kirby Dream Land 3 set difficulty to easy breezy, Kirby's Dream Course Dancing Along with Kirby. Secret modes are all unlocked in these special versions of the games. So while special edition releases of otherwise already released SNES games don't really get me particularly hyped, it is nice to see Nintendo actually doing things to acknowledge Kirby's 30th anniversary and give Kirby fans a reason to hop back into the series, as obviously we've had the major mainline installment that actually is selling incredibly well, which is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And definitely 10 out of 10 recommend all Nintendo fans, and definitely Kirby platformer style fans. If you were a fan of Mario 3D World, I will say just go get that game. It definitely plays a lot like that in my opinion, but with more of Kirby specific mechanics, and I had a blast playing through the entire story from start to finish. And it's great to see Kirby get some love around this time where he is turning 30. But I do think it raises an interesting talking point around special editions of games being added into the SNES library, whereas we still have a large chunk of games, licensed games for the most part, that Nintendo may have to spend some money on. But just pay the money, Nintendo. Get Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars on there. Get a large chunk of Mega Man games, both from the NES and the SNES era, being the Mega Man X 1 through 3 games. Like, give us some quality titles and reasons to be excited for the base tier service again in terms of new additions, not just things like cloud storage and the ability to play online. And if you really want to drive new subscriptions, come out with the Game Boy family of systems, include at least Game Boy and Game Boy Color library of games on the base tier. I definitely think if we get GBA, that is for sure going to the expansion pack and will be something that is used to drive that higher revenue and $50 annual price point that they would obviously rather have for many of their users. But I do think there is a strong argument that Game Boy and Game Boy Color could come to the base tier, and I think that that would add a bunch of value for people that need to see a lot of those classic handheld games. If by some miracle they could work out the deal with the Pokemon Company to put out the classic handheld Pokemon games as part of the base tier, well, I think your subscriptions absolutely go up through the roof. And I would love to see Nintendo really put more love and focus on the systems that are already there, and then also add in more content and more classic games to new systems on the base tier service, like the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And, you know, throw your Mario Land games on there and Donkey Kong Land games that would be instant classics in my opinion. They have a large library of titles that are their own, that they don't have to spend the licensing rights on if they do indeed add in more systems to the base tier of the service. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, both the stories we talked about today. How are you feeling with Sonic Origins and some of the missteps that Sega has made, at least in my opinion, around this game's upcoming release? Are you like me and you definitely are frustrated that we won't be getting the original soundtrack entirely, and that this is still just a digital only release? Also share with me whether or not you're getting that game at launch, and definitely let me know what your thoughts and feelings are for Nintendo Switch Online base tier service right now. What do you think about the new additions for the special edition Kirby games on the SNES? Are you like me and you're ready to see some of the heavy hitter classics come back to the NES and SNES to continue to build out that library? And do you think it is indeed time for Nintendo to talk about things like Game Boy family of systems hitting Nintendo Switch Online, or do you think that they still will wait quite a ways off before we see any talk like that? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings and everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments down below before we leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss a very interesting update around that interesting leak that hit around the Nintendo Direct event, supposedly being June 15th, and why that's not as solid anymore as it once was. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.